we focus on helping you claim what's rightfully yours, your health and your freedom. We explore the three main areas of health: the physical realm, the biochemical realm, and the mental and emotional realm. We also explore all the areas of lifestyle we can find that will help you live more abundantly, regardless of where you're starting. And remember, in life, you'll either make excuses or create results. You choose. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Hant, and I'm glad to be with you here today. Make sure to head on down to the show notes and click on the link to join our tribe of human-powered life heroes, where we'll update you on new shows, events, product launches, and so much more. Now, it's time to enjoy the show. Record button. All right, so here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Human Powered Life podcast. We have an amazing guest. This is the one and the only, the running man. This is Charlie Engle. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. I'm so happy to be here, and it's great to see you again. Last time I saw you was actually in person, so that was better, but I like this too.
All right, yeah, we'll do this virtual thing. And just so everybody knows, this is our second go-around. This was, we figured out that technology didn't like our first conversation as much as we're going to have now. So we're redoing this. But the cool thing, like Charlie just said, we were together and did some running and suffering and challenging things over the course of 30 hours, not too far back. So let's, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? I feel like we've already done this, but
sorry. I mean, the good news is, Josh, I can't ever remember what I said even yesterday most of the time. So this is like all new information even for me. So
good.
No, but I mean, my background is everything starts with addiction, and it's always it's the simplest way to put it. Everything I do, everything that I am is sort of foundationally is grounded in addiction, which sounds ominous in some way, but early in my life that manifested in actual drug and alcohol addiction, which was a huge focus for me for over a decade. My entire 20s were pretty much eaten up with the seeking or acquisition or doing of drugs and alcohol. And, I was that guy who also managed to have good jobs and be the top salesperson and sort of carry on with two lives. But it wasn't until I left that part of my life behind at 29 years old that I was able to take that power of addiction, because it is a superpower. I was able to take my obsessive nature and point it towards some things like running and business and helping other people find their way out of addiction, drug addiction. It wasn't until that happened that life really began for me in earnest. And my biggest concern when I got sober 30 years ago was that my life was going to be really boring.
Far from it.
I'm happy to say that hasn't been the case. So, not all of it has been easy or perfect or good, because that's not the way life works. But I've had the good fortune to be fully present and to be able to be a participant in my own life during those times, whether they're good or bad.
Yeah. And I want to maybe connect your life and your story with people that are just starting on their natural health journey, or maybe even like getting out of addiction. I truly think it's what you've done is very powerful. And after getting to know you as well as I do at this point, I mean, I obviously don't know you that well, but I feel in a good way from reading your book to, spending time and having a couple of conversations. It's very powerful what you've done, and you say addiction is a superpower. And I truly believe you've embodied that. Right. So for people that, are struggling, besides finding, treatment, what was the trigger for you to realize, okay, like this is killing me from the inside out. What do I need to do something to harness this power for good? Was there like a defining moment?
Yeah, I mean, there was, and although, I'm you and I have talked enough now that our conversations are always going to be free form. So I'm going to go in a slightly, you triggered something for me a second ago that I think is important, because when I think about people who might be listening to this, who in particular are having their own struggles, like right now, because it's inevitable. I mean, there's a number of people listening at this moment who, whether it's addiction in the form of drugs and alcohol, or anything else, porn, gambling, work, pretty much everybody at one time or another sort of questions the balance that's going on in their life and whether they're doing it right. And, what I like to say is, more than anything else is, and you embody this, is to keep it, you have to give it away. And I use this mantra all the time, and it's the simplest thing, because it just simply means that, whatever your gift is, that thing that you've learned to do well, and it doesn't matter, like whether it's a sport or playing an instrument or whatever it is, if you're not sharing it with someone else, which you do every day, and I like to think I do also, if you're not sharing it without the expectation of return, without there being some ROI attached to it, or some, anything else, and you're just giving it because it's a skill that you have and it's the right thing to do, then why have you spent time accumulating that ability? And the point that I'm really making is that this has happened to me so much lately, where people have called me, or a loved one has called about someone in their life who is struggling, usually with drug addiction or alcoholism, and that person will express like a complete inability to get unstuck from where they are right now. And the thing that I say first and foremost, and I'm talking about even for a person who is like really, really struggling, like with drugs actively right now, the best way to get out of that is to help someone else. You and I are seekers, and my guess is, if somebody's listening to this podcast, they're also a seeker. Like there's somebody that's looking for new ideas. Maybe that one, they could listen to us jabber on for an hour, and maybe there's only one nugget that they hear today. But if they get one that allows them to examine some part of their life and maybe move forward and make progress or change something entirely. The other thing that I like to say is, we get so deeply embedded in our lifestyles, even if you're an addict, the fear of making a change from that is far greater than even the negative implications of continuing that lifestyle, or at least that's the way a lot of people see it. So what strikes me very first and foremost is, if you can find a way to help somebody else, that may not give you immediate answer to your own problem, but it will give you insight into your own problem, even if it's hard to see how the dots are going to connect. So in my case, and I'll keep this super brief, when I was 29, I had tried everything to quit at that point. I had gone to rehab, I'd gone to meetings, I'd gone to church, and I had done, you name it, I had tried it. But what I really wanted was something outside of me to force me to quit, right? Because if there was something that just left me no choice, despite my crazy actions and the consequences of the things I've been doing, and losing jobs and relationships and money and everything else, none of those things were enough to make me quit. They just wasn't going to happen. So I wanted some magical force outside of me to make me do it. And my son was born, my first son. You didn't meet this son, my older son. He wasn't there a few weeks ago, but when we were together. But he was born, and I thought he was going to be the answer to all my prayers. Like he would finally be, the thing, the person in my life because surely I'm a decent guy. I mean, as a dad, couldn't I stop for him? Like, couldn't I change this life? Like, now I had someone else really depending on me. Surely I'm a good enough person, to simply stop this bad behavior for him. But that's not how it works. And a couple of months into his life, I found myself in the crack house again. And, people are shooting at my car with me in it, and the police are involved. And, and I have this just terrible ending to a 6-day, drug binge. And, I was hit with a simple but really clear thought. And it was this one simple idea that, nobody's coming to save you. Tons of people, tons. I mean, everybody in my life that I hadn't totally burned a bridge with at that point, everybody was willing to help me. But what that means is, once I made the decision, the commitment, the move, once I gave myself over to this process of healing and getting better and changing my behavior, then other people would step up mightily. And it took time. It wasn't instant, because I'd lost a lot of trust with people. If you tell people what you're going to do, and I promise I'll never do that again, and that'll never happen, and I love you, and you do that 100 times, and every single time it happens again, then of course nobody believes you. And so it takes time. That's the hardest part, is that when you change a behavior that you need to change, it affects other people in your life. They don't believe you, because you've said, they want to believe you, but you've told them dozens of times before that that's never going to happen again. And so it took, I would say, I'm really sort of picking this number, but I would say it probably took at least 6 months before those people closest to me started to really trust. Okay, this time seems,
all right, he's telling the truth now.
Yeah, this time seems different, and let's see what happens from here. And and from there, here I am today. 30 years later. I'm happy to say that I've been through crazy ups and downs. I've been to prison in sobriety. I've lost many, many, many friends to drug addiction, overdoses. I've tried to save a lot of people, and and all these years have taught me I can't save anyone. They have to save themselves, and I can support them in doing that. And I just think that's true across the board, whether it's addiction, PTSD, some other form of trauma. If somebody listening to this is in what they feel like is a battle for their life, the first thing you have to do is come to terms with yourself and decide, I am going to change this. And then the second thing you do is to ask for help.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you were saying, like, giving, right? Giving of your superpower, right? Like, and I think that's very powerful. And you touched on a couple of things that brought me back to, growing up, and my family's a chiropractic family. Going to these seminars, I always heard at a young age, you got to be, do, have, right? In that order. It doesn't happen in a different. You got to be the person first, right? And then you have to do the action steps, and then you'll reap the rewards, or have whatever that result is, whether it's in business, life, addiction, coming over that addiction. So you just brought me back by going through that whole process. I didn't realize I was going to have like a therapy session here listening to you, right?
You're welcome.
Thank you. So in your journey coming out, like creating your superpower, I know you, and I told this story when we first recorded, but I just keep it very short and sweet. But, when I was running, I bought a treadmill this past winter, an indoor treadmill with no motor. And I'm like, I want to run a marathon on this thing. And I listen to audiobooks when I get bored, because I put a TV in front of it. It's indoors. It was very boring. And I'm like, well, the speakers are not loud enough. So I'll put headphones in and listen to an audiobook. And I listened to Running Man. I just picked I'm like, a running book, fine. And it was more about really to me, it was like listening to a Tony Robbins book, right? Like it was like a self-help.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like a self-help book. I'm like, holy crap. I need to talk to this guy. And I don't recommend everybody. He's a runner, and we're going to get into some of the running stuff. Charlie's a runner, but the book and the picture of Charlie on the cover may make you think it's only about running, but his story, his journey is so powerful. I think you're going to get that book and go, holy crap, I wish I had seen this and found this earlier. The story is great, but it's real. And the journey, and now knowing you after the fact, like, holy cow, this guy embodies,
I appreciate
change.
that. Honestly,
Yeah.
I do. I mean, that means more to me than anything because I'm more, I love to write. And when I sold this book, to Simon and Schuster, I insisted on the fact that I'm not the most talented runner. There's plenty of other people who could tell you how many miles to run on Tuesday, or, they could describe to you, oh, I did this race. Here's what happened. Here's the lesson I learned. And then I did this race. I wanted to just, it's not false humility at all. I genuinely, my struggle goes on every day, still
Mhm.
today, 30 years later. And it's not that I'm not struggling not to drink or do a drug. I struggle like everybody else, just to live on a daily basis
Mhm.
and feel good about myself and useful and hope I'm helping other people. And do I have
Yeah.
enough money in the bank? And do I have it's all the same. But if you can, running is the through line though. Running,
Yeah.
and the point of the book was that running is the thing that saved my life, and then it kind of gave me a life. But running isn't life.
Yes.
Running is a part and can be a beautiful
Yeah.
part of a really fulfilling life.
Yeah, so let's talk about that because when we've had our conversations, you said you did 3 years of like everyday running and meetings like to get yourself to break free. And I think that's so powerful because to me personally, running, I'm not an addict. I haven't been an addict, but I may be addicted to running right at this point,
Yeah.
right? So maybe I am an addict in that sense. But I will say, for me, it's been an amazing teacher, and I wasn't like trying to get away from something or try to overcome something. I did it to try to do my first marathon.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of power, a lot of amazement in the struggle, in the challenge, coming out of my first marathon, like pre-hypothermic, and my wife saying, good, I'm glad you finished it. We're done. Like you're done. Good. And I'm like, couldn't move my hands. Like she had to help take my socks off. I'm like, I think I could do more. We saw those people running the 50K and 50 miler earlier when we showed up. Like, I
Yeah.
think I could do that. And I was like, here we go. And
Yeah.
I don't know how long. I haven't even really asked her like how long she thought it might last, but that
Yeah.
was in 2017, and it's just been ever since. So and I love it because I learn a lot. So with you and those 3 years running across the Sahara Desert, like all of these journeys you've, I say, put yourself through intentionally,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's running across, the Badwater 135, which I want to talk a little bit about that. But doing things like that, you know, people always ask me like, why do you submit yourself to like running 100 miles? Like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
So like, what's your answer?
Yeah, well, I mean, my answer is always, how would you not want to do that? I
Yeah.
mean, it is it's such a tangible way to test your limits.
Mm.
And I think that, I mean, I don't want to go off on my old man stump speech of what's wrong with our country, but it's kind of like, you know, I don't know, somehow we've lost that desire, in a general sense of seeing what your limits are.
Hmm.
I mean, that to me is sort of the ultimate human question. How far can I go? Now, for some people, that's not going to be physical. So with other people, it's in academia or it's in science. Can you imagine asking a scientist, like, why do you want to cure cancer or something? I
Yeah.
mean, the point is, so often is it's in the quest for the
Yes.
goal.
The journey, right? Yeah.
It's not in the goal. I have never one time reached the finish line of a 100-miler or crossed a desert or a jungle, gotten to the end and said, aha, now I have all the answers. Like that's not, if
Yeah.
anything, what ends up happening is I have more questions.
Hmm.
And the funny thing is, the average person, I believe, that asks that question of someone, like, why would you subject yourself to that?
Yeah.
Either we're going to have the shortest conversation ever,
Yeah.
because honestly, if it's a person who's not a seeker and they're not interested in seeing how they can grow their life, I'm probably not interested in talking to them.
Mm.
I'll be
Yeah.
nice to them, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
one of my recent conversations with Deepak Chopra, revolved around this idea of motivation versus inspiration. And I think
I
you
love
and I
that
talked about
conversation.
it,
Yeah.
and you can't motivate another person. There's no
No.
motivating. So you can
Yeah.
inspire them, but if that person cannot find their motivation, on their own, and that doesn't live inside them, then go ahead and eat your chips and sit on the sofa and play video games. Knock yourself out, man.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel badly for that person, but maybe it's age. I'm no longer in a place in my life where I'm trying to convince those people to get off the sofa nearly as much as I am taking people who are committed.
Right. Yeah.
They're already committed to saying, hey, I want to be better.
Yeah. Hey, we're giving you a short break here where you can head down to the show notes or lifestylelocker.com and join our tribe of human-powered life heroes. You'll be the first to know about new shows, events, product launches, affiliate specials, and more. And now, back to the show.
Please help me figure out how I can be better. Like that's what I want, because there's millions of people, hundreds of millions of people who want to be better. So I'd rather speak to them than the folks that, just simply don't have any interest. They want to do their time on this planet and they won't leave a mark. And, and I mean, but again, that's not my business. And so I think this quest for information, and I'll finish my long-winded answer on that question in this way. I have never done a 100-miler that I didn't want to quit. And that's another thing most people don't realize. It's not like I don't know any 100-milers out there. I mean, with a few exceptions, of runners, who, doesn't reach some point in the race where you're going, why did I think this was a good idea? Like, what is wrong with me? I've asked that question many times.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the only thing I'm going to remember about that 100-miler is actually that moment. And if I can find a way to get past that moment, usually it just means experience. It means eating, drinking, walking for a minute, letting my pain threshold go from a 10 to a 8, maybe, if I'm lucky. And that little bit will make such a difference. But when I look back later at that event, that's the part of it that I'll remember. And that's the same, Josh, as your family life growing up. You think about the things that are formative and that have made you who you are. We don't think about how easy things were. We think about the hard things, the death of a parent or a loved one, the loss of a relationship, those painful things in our lives that hopefully taught us lessons. And we remember those. We don't remember the easy stuff because it's not how we're built. So you and I, and hopefully a lot of people listen to this, choose to put ourselves into stressful physical situations because it's manageable. And if you can get past that moment, you can take that feeling and transfer it to other parts of your life. So instead of, quitting your job, shutting down your business, leaving your marriage or relationship, like in an instant, okay, take a beat. This feeling is going to pass if I do the things I know how to do. You might still choose to do let those things go in your life later. But like in that moment, I always tell my kids, don't make super important decisions when you're at a high place or when you're in a low place, because those moments aren't really real. Most of us, we just kind of live in this middle ground most of the time. And we can't let those super emotional highs and lows dictate how we're going to go.
Yeah. And I mean, you said a couple of things I want to touch on just, as a response, like when I show up and me personally, I've only done 100. I've done the 30-hour with you. I've done many other 50 mile and 50K races. And I think every time I show up, and even like now I have this 150 that's coming up in October, this 150 miler. In my head, I'm always going, why the hell did I pull the trigger and sign up for that? Like my wife's like, don't do it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it, like type of thing in my head. And then by the time they go through the event, first or last, it didn't make a difference. It's like, I'm so glad that I did that. Suffered, been injured. I mean, I've done all the things. And I think any person that's done any kind of endurance running or biking, whatever, has had their fair share of, slip falls, whatever, banged up and whatever. But I'm so grateful that I did it, because it's always been a learning moment. And I just want to share this. And I shared this with a couple of people at the Penguin event, the 30-hour event. I wasn't with you, I don't think, at the moment, but there's a guy named James Stockdale. Have you heard the name?
I have.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, he's the guy. He was the first person, fighter pilot in Vietnam, essentially shot down, put in the Hanoi Hilton, which is the prison camp. And he was there for 7 years. And I'm going to get maybe the quote wrong, but he said that event was the defining moment, or the defining moments of my life. I mean, he was abused in isolation for 7 years. I mean, really bad, like, almost like a Holocaust type thing. And he came out of the other end, where many people died of fear, worry, anger, like all of these things. And he just kept on knowing that this is going to mean something later in life. And he became a very successful businessman, a politician, all of these things. So when I do these events and have conversations with people like yourself, makes me think, okay, like, what is going to be this defining moment in this event for me? Because I'm going to learn something. I don't know what it's going to be, whether it's building another relationship with another person, like the Penguin, which was the event for everybody that we just did, which was at Ashley Treatment Center in Maryland, raising money for an awareness and scholarship money for addiction treatment. I got to meet some amazing, amazing people. It was horrible as far as the weather went, like 100 plus with the heat index, but we all went and we all did it. I mean, that, like, the community was awesome. So I thank you for that. I mean, you brought together really cool people, especially the people who wanted to suffer for 30 hours.
Good news. You're invited back next year.
Oh, listen, are we doing 31 minutes or what are we doing? So, so that was really great. So let's shift a little bit. So now you've come through your 3 years, you've made it out the other side, you're learning, you're teaching, you're helping other people, inspiring other people. What is it now that you actually, I want to say, like, do for life? Like, what's your life purpose?
Yeah, well, it actually mixes in with what you just said, because I want to, me, I've always got to have another comment. But what I tell people all the time, just like your 150-mile event that you're going to do, you are so lucky, because you think about it, how many at this stage of your life, how many new experiences do you actually have?
True. Yeah.
I mean, on a daily basis, when are you standing in front of something, starting something, whatever, where you're saying, I've never done this before? Almost never.
Yeah.
And, even for long-term runners, and I very jokingly give even some of my friends a hard time who've run, I've run hundreds of marathons, but I'm not obsessed with running marathons, not because what I love about a marathon is the camaraderie and fellowship, and I'm standing there at the start line with hundreds or thousands of people, and like, that's a beautiful feeling. You don't know if the guy next to you is the CEO of a Fortune 500 company or a janitor, and it doesn't matter. No, because he's probably going to kick your ass either way. Yeah. And like, that's what I love about the sport. But when, people who say, I'm never going to run anything over a marathon, I actually will. I'll try to be good natured about giving them a hard time, but I'm like, why? Like, why? You look at the lessons and the gifts that running a marathon has given you. Why wouldn't you run a 50-miler? Why wouldn't you run a 100-miler? It's not 4 times harder than a marathon, 100 miles. It's different entirely. Yeah. It's body maintenance, it's mental maintenance, it's all these things that happen. Like, it's not a peak experience where you're only going to be out there a few hours. You're going to be out there for 20 to 30 hours probably for most people, maybe even more. And how often in life do we have the experience to get to that nervous energy and excitement when you're standing on the start line and you're actually asking yourself this question: I wonder if I can do this. Like, What I mean, we all, me included, we spend too much time recreating things that we already know we can do. Why? Like
Yeah.
what you don't, yeah, I understand if it's your business and like that's your business. You're making money maybe so you can go, hopefully you're helping people like you do,
Yeah.
but also so that you can then go afford to be able to have other peak experiences. But I don't ever have a desire to spend a single dime on my bank account to go sit on a beach somewhere. I'm not saying I don't like sitting on the beach, but I would rather go to the beach and run a marathon or run 100 miler or something, and then maybe sit on the beach for a
Yeah.
minute. Like I don't plan my life around going to do nothing in places.
Mm.
I want to go experience it and like have cultural
Mm.
exploration and
Yeah.
and all of that. And I think that is after 30 years of sobriety and 30 years of running, and not just running, I mean, cycling, adventure racing, obstacle racing. I've been a race director for Spartan off and on for years. I've done a number of things in that adventure world. And I'm always looking, when somebody calls me and says, hey, would you be interested in helping me design a course in Costa Rica or on some island in the British Virgin Islands? I'm like, hell yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I want to do that. And it's like, I should start by at least asking the question, do I get paid? But I
Yeah.
mean, the fact of the matter is that's not how I'm built. That's not the first question that comes to my mind. My first question, and really in almost every situation, is, what is this going to teach me? How can I use it to help other people? Like what is in this?
Mm.
I'm going to switch gears for a second. Like, I'm in a very, my wife has been sick for several years. She's got cancer. Like we've gone through a lot here. We've been married, going on 9 years, and several of those have been sort of eaten up with, not being able to travel, not being able to do the things that we thought we would be doing together, while we're trying to get her
Mm.
healthy. So I battle regularly this feeling of, what am I learning anything from this?
Mm.
What am I doing? Am I just marking time? And I'm guilty of this. She'd be the first one to tell you. I am guilty sometimes of marking time to get to another place in the future where we can begin the life that we plan to have together. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not how life works. And it's not how 100 milers work or your
Yeah.
business works. You have to adapt to what's right in front of you and deal with what's right there so that you can be equipped to deal with the
Yeah.
things that are coming down the road. And none of us has any guarantees on what's coming. So, get your ass out there and get busy doing things that seem impossible. And I mean, I'm going to actually give you a little bit of a teasing hard time, or it's more your wife. You've mentioned a couple times, maybe she hasn't wanted you to continue
No, I think
on doing.
she's the best support I've got
Yeah.
by
Okay.
far.
Good. I was gonna make a joke out of it, but it's also an important acknowledgement that to
Mhm.
do the things we like to do, you and I, and
Mhm.
lots of people listening, we need, like you need to surround yourself with people who are supportive.
Mhm.
And then you need to turn around and support them in the same way. Like
Mhm.
whatever that thing is for them. For them, it might not be running or
Mhm.
adventure. It might be something else altogether. And
Yeah.
I have to remind myself not to always be, selfish about, yes, there's all these things I want to do,
Mhm.
but it's also really important that I help my wife,
Yeah.
and others do those things for themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree. Having a support, I want to say crew, I'm just saying that in general, but like that supportive group of people around you is so powerful. Like my in-laws come to my races. If I asked them to walk 2 miles, they would curse me out, type of thing. But they'll show up with a camper. They'll have I mean, it's great. I don't have those things. But they love cheering me on, even though if it's a 10-mile loop or something, they may see me for 3 minutes, however many
Well,
times.
do you know how many people, when they come and do that, you know how many other people in their life they tell that
Oh yeah.
they're coming to watch you? And that's the,
Yeah.
that's the other beautiful thing about it is
Yeah.
when you do things instead of just talk about them. Like, and I mean, again, I'm going to give parents a hard time for a second. If you are sitting on the sofa telling your kids to go outside and play, and that's the only thing you ever say, and you're not going out there with them, I'm sorry, man. Unless
Yeah.
you just can't.
Yep.
And I know you can't do it all the time, but like, the way to get people to do, kids, adults, anybody, it's attraction rather than promotion. And it's a
Mhm.
saying I learned a long time ago in addiction recovery. I would never actually tell other people not to drink or do drugs. To be honest, that's their business. What I do is I live my sober life really publicly. And at some point, I trust the fact that they're going to get miserable and unhappy enough with the way they're living their life
Mhm.
that
They're attracted to you.
they might look up one day and go, man, I don't know if it's true, but that guy's life looks better than mine.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
try. I'm going to try to do some of what he's doing. And,
Yeah.
too many people in this social media world want to tell other people what to do and how to live their life. Show other people what to
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
Show them there's an alternative and they
Yeah.
will come to you.
Yeah.
And if you spend all your time, telling and not showing, you're not going to make much of an impact.
Yeah. And I'll go back to what you said with Deepak Chopra. You said inspiration and motivation. I don't know who said this. It was my father, my mother, maybe like a Tony Robbins, but it's been way back in my life. They said, whoever this was, said motivation is like taking a shower. It's something you'll need to do every day. Right. But when
Yeah.
you're inspired, it's a lot easier to take action daily because you're inspired versus like, gotta go. I want to go to the gym, like, type of whatever it is, there's so many people like that, but there are also
Yeah.
those people that, we're inspired. They're inspired. They do great things in all areas of of life, it's business or relationships or, and I love learning from you. Like to me, you're inspirational. So that's why I like having conversations and learning and following and listening because I learn a lot.
Well, same to you. And I'm glad that I'm older than you. So I had more years to do more stuff than you up to
Yeah.
this point. But like, that's just it. I've run across the Sahara. I've done all these things. I don't actually it's not that I don't like talking about them. I don't live in the past. So I will talk about them to the degree that it helps someone who doesn't know who I am.
Yeah.
It sort of gives my qualifications. And
Yeah.
just like when I tell somebody I'm 30 years clean and sober, I could go into all kinds of gory details about all the drugs I did and the situations I got myself into. But you know what? Most people are like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And like, there's not much to be gained from that. And
Mhm.
so we do inspire people just by, and that's the other point I make to anyone. We are all mentors and we're all mentees, right? Someone is watching you and you are watching
Mhm.
someone else, even if you never tell them that they're a mentor or that like it might even be a famous person that you watch on, Instagram or something. You might never reach out to them, but like it's the same. And there's other people who don't, for whatever reason, reach out to you to tell you that they admire you or they like what you're doing, but they're out there.
Yeah.
And like how we conduct ourselves. And I think that the most important piece is to share the struggle. And I tell people all the time, I have done a lot of really hard stuff in my life. And I've been through some hard stuff. And a lot of it is like, some of it's self-inflicted. I've made disastrous decisions at times in my life. And so those are self-inflicted wounds. Some of them were just dumped on me out of the universe, not my fault, or what doesn't really matter. But how you handle those things and sharing the struggle with other people, that engages people. Nobody wants to actually watch you run 100 miles and make it look easy. They don't. If you just ran the whole time and you're smiling and laughing and you cross the finish line, frankly, they're like, I won't curse on your podcast, but they're like, F you, like, because that's not first of all, it's almost never real.
Exactly.
You can be running along and suffering, and then when you turn your camera on, all of a sudden you're all smiles and how amazing this is. That's bullshit. It's like, if you feel lousy and you feel like quitting and you're a social media person, turn your damn phone on and tell your audience, you know what? This sucks right now. I hate this. I'm sorry that I'm doing it. Check back with me later. And then let them watch the
journey,
metamorphosis,
right? Yeah, metamorphosis. Yeah, agreed.
You know,
like sharing, right? Sharing the struggle, sharing the vulnerability that you are like them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because they think that you're better. They've never run a 100-miler and you run one. They're thinking, no way in hell can I do what that guy does.
Yeah.
Because all they envision is you crossing the finish line. They don't realize what it took you to get there.
Yeah. And which really neat, you know, I see this in my practice. I take care of a lot of people that end up running the New York City Marathon. And usually in our first meeting, you know, I get to know them in the consultation, who they are, what they do. And I always ask what type of movement activities you like to do that are good for your health. And quite often it's running. And, you know, when they're training for a marathon, like, oh, it's so hard to train for a marathon, but I've done one. And then I'll just bring up the conversation. I go, you can do a lot more than you think. And they go, how do you know? I go, well, I was where you are not that long ago. And now I run races that are upwards of 100 miles. And they're not easy. They're maybe not be fun. But where you bonk at 18, like you'll be warming up in your bigger races and you won't even recognize, go, holy cow. Like mentally, someone told me I would bonk at mile 18. So I'm always going to bonk at 18 no matter what, even if I'm like a great runner. And then I remember and I'll share them, like my first 100 attempt that I did before I had to tap out like from broken bones is at 18, I have a video of me running past my wife and drinking like an electrolyte thing. I'm like, I feel freaking awesome. This is great. I feel so good. And it's mile 18.
Yeah.
It wasn't like mile 3. Mile 3, I wanted to quit.
Right. That's right there. Right.
Yeah. Right. What did you tell? I think one of our conversations, you're like, it's 90% mental and 10% in your head.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, to your point, I mean, it's,
well, all you have to do is stand at the finish line of the New York City Marathon. How many people, you know, collapse or at the end of an Ironman? They collapse right there. Yet, if you it would be a really cruel trick. If you just move the finish line one more mile down the road without telling them, then that's where they would go. Yeah. And then they would collapse. So it is the collapse is as much as anything mental and emotional as it is physical. And that's the important thing too, Josh, is that's everything. That's business. Yes. That's your personal life. It's your relationships. You know, you think this is the finish line, but if they move the finish line, then you'd go to that finish line. So it is about your approach. I don't think you and I talked about this, but I think it's such everybody understand. Almost everyone has tried, every guy anyway, has tried to go to the gym to make their biceps bigger. Right.
Always. I mean, can you see me right now? I mean, I'm huge. Look at these things.
They are massive. So at some point, though, every boy,
of course,
young man, and lots of women too. I don't want to leave the women out, but I mean, I think it's boys are more prone to like that's the first thing. We want primal. And you learn early on if you start going to the gym, it will happen, but it's a painstakingly slow process. And like, it takes time, but it's such a great example of seeing results. You know, even at I'll be 60 next month. I still love going to the gym, and I go through phases where if I'm lifting heavier, you know, I can get some fairly big arms, at least for a runner anyway. And like, but it's fun because I know if I go like 6 weeks in a row where I'm going 3 days a week and I'm doing arms and doing other stuff, like, I can take a picture every week and I'll see the tangible change. And like, it's such a great example, but you don't see it in one session or you do. That's the sneaky thing about lifting is, you know, it pulls blood to that area. So you get a pump and that pump lasts, you know, 30 minutes or an hour at most. And then of course, all the blood goes somewhere else and it's not there anymore. But it's a great example of the, you know, just the long-term, you know, if you're in it for the long term, you will build muscle, 100%.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's how consistency works in life, in every area of life. And like we said, like I know you've had like years of a running streak, if you will. I've had 87 days so far for me. And I see the results. I mean, I'm lean. I feel good. My headspace is much better. I'm actually look like I have leg muscles now, because it doesn't look like a chicken running down the road type
Yeah.
of thing. But
Well, I got a question for you.
yeah,
When you started your streak, what was your goal?
I didn't have one. I'm like,
You didn't
I
have one.
spoke, I didn't really have it. I'm like, I'll see if I keep running every day. I met a guy. It may have actually been our conversation that started it. And you said 3 years. And I'm like, huh, okay. And then I met a guy doing a 12-hour ultra, who's a pro athlete. And he's like, I've run over 3 years every day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I think I was on like day 15 or something, or 10. And I'm like, you running after the ultramarathon? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh crap. That means I have
Right.
to also, like, and then that was it. I'm like, okay. And then I met people, it's like, okay, I could.
Well, I think streaks are important too, to define what a streak is. So how many miles on a daily basis are you committed to continue your streak?
So the days I'm in the city are very specific, but I have very short window of time to run.
Yeah.
So absolute minimum is like 2.1 is the absolute minimum that I will put in. That's it. Like there's no underneath. It does not go under that.
2 miles. So we'll say 2 miles is your floor. And I think that's a very more than adequate, appropriate, amount. And on an average day, what would you say your average run is?
So I think I did 8.5 today or something like that.
Yeah.
So
you're
I'm
probably
like
averaging like 4 or 5 miles a day.
Yeah, probably. I would say it's fair.
Yeah.
It's probably fair.
So when are you going to stop?
I don't have a plan on stopping yet.
Right.
I don't have that. That's not a plan.
And so when I tell you that going back to when I got sober, I did commit initially. I committed to 30 days. I said, okay, I'm going to see if I can go to a meeting every day and run every day for 30 days. And I'm just going to see what happens. Like that was my commitment. And mentally, I felt like that was okay. The mantra in addiction recovery, everybody's heard it, is one day at a time. I mean, really, that should be everybody's mantra, because that's all any of us can do, is one day at a time, But at the end of the 30 days, my life had improved measurably. Like not like all my problems were gone and everything else, but I could measure the improvement both in my physical health, how I felt, how I looked, how my job went, and how my relationships were going. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this for 90 days. So I did make a jump, but I still put a mark on it. I said, okay, because I needed an early recovery. I needed to hold myself accountable, and I needed a time in the future where it was going to end, or at least that's the way I looked at it when I set the goal.
Yeah.
And so when I got to 90 days and my life had now it was almost a full 180. I mean, just in 90 days, physically I felt bulletproof. I was going to meetings. So I was working on the emotional and mental and spiritual part. And people were starting to trust me, because I wasn't, stealing their car or disappearing for 3 days at a time or whatever. And then I actually just said, well, I'm not going to put a number on this. I'm just going to keep going, and I'll know when the time is right to quit. But for me, I actually, and I think this is true, I felt like at some point, literally like my life depended on it, because I nearly died as an addict. So my life, and I don't always mean like my physical life, like my ability to be alive. But my life as a human being, depended on me continuing this streak for a while. Why did I quit even at 3 years? It wasn't even so much, I hit that anniversary. I just knew it. I just knew that it was time to actually take the pressure off of me, because in 3 years, I'd had a few days where I had to like friggin', run 3 miles at an airport, or I had to I was having to do some, I was having to jump through some hoops that were really complicated, and it also could be complicated for other people in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not just me. It's like, oh, we're going on vacation, but yeah, dad's got to like friggin' run 3 miles before we anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just knew it was the right time, and I felt like, okay, I've accomplished what I wanted out of that. And then of
Yeah.
course I took the one day off, and then I probably ran every day for another 6 months after that, but I didn't mentally call that a streak. But what you're doing, I think, is beautiful, and you'll know if the day comes where you're like, okay, you know what, that was great,
Yeah.
and if I have to miss a day because I'm sick or I'm injured or something else, then, but it needs to be on, as much as possible when you end the streak, it just needs to be on your terms,
Yeah.
not anybody else's.
Yeah. I guess as I'm going through, I'm excited. I'm at 87. I'm like, okay, I got 100 is like a cool number. Like, great. I want to get to 100 like that.
Yeah.
I don't think I shouldn't say I think. I am not going to not get to 100. I will run no matter what.
I believe it. And then see what happens when you get there.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, that's the thing. We again, I tell young people, you're young still, but like
Ish.
Don't get so attached to outcomes because you can't predict the outcome.
No, I'm not looking for a change, if you will.
Right.
But it's more about the ritualistic.
Too often we kind of say, if I don't get to this place, then this journey hasn't been worth it. And that's just not true. It's not fair to yourself, because whatever you learned along the way, is impactful, even if it didn't take you where you thought you were going.
Yeah. And I think there's a silver lining in all of like the journey. I don't know what that is for me yet. The only thing that's like the only day so far that's concerning for me in the running streak, as I think forward, is the day after my 150.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, shit, what am I going to do? And I'm just going to do it. Like, I don't even care.
What time does the event start? I mean, it's going to take you, I mean, I can't say this for sure, but my guess is you'll be in the 48-hour range. I mean, so you're going to have a couple of days where what you need to do is actually make it 49 hours. That way you will have already run on the
So this is what I'm going to do, because the event when we did the 30-hour, I did sleep for an hour. I had like mild heat stroke, and I'm like, okay, I need to tap out and we'll see how I feel. And I just kept running. So I counted that, because it was like 2 or 3 in the morning or whatever it was. So I'm like, okay, that was I did sleep. So that's the second day of running. My goal is 75 miles. Just I'm saying it out loud so now the universe knows. 75 miles the first day.
Yeah.
I want to do 3 to 4 hours of a break.
Yeah.
Which hopefully be sleep and nighttime, and then 75 the next day.
Yeah.
I don't know the mileage, speed, and time. I haven't really calibrated that in my head yet where I'd like to be. I'd like to have a ballpark so my wife can say, slow down.
Yeah.
Pick it up. But
Where
I will run
and when is it?
It's October 8th. It starts.
Okay. And where?
Long Island. It's called the Tesla Hertz 150.
That's great. That's a great spot. Hopefully the weather will be decent. And, you could.
It's okay. I'll show up no matter what. As you know, I'm in. If I say I'm doing it, I'm totally 107 degrees or rain and snow. Like it is what it is.
And I tell people all the time, and you and I discussed this too. You are your personality is more meticulous and detailed than I am. I tend to, sometimes to my own great detriment, just wing it completely.
Yeah, I'm there, but that's why I have my wife.
Yeah, but you're also it's just, I know you well enough. It's actually I wish I had more of it. The thing is, you don't let those restrictions, you don't let your need for trying to keep things like in line stop you from understanding that it really is all like that event 100% will be about how you adapt to the things that go wrong.
Oh, always. Yeah.
It has nothing, you're going to prepare and you're going to make a plan. You're going to like all this stuff. And man, for all you know, it'll be snowing or it'll be 100 degrees or there'll be like, you just don't know. And, and so, but I think the thing is, it's just like with training, I always say with training, if I'm planning a run on Saturday that like I'm physically capable of doing, and it's a 5-hour run, and it's raining or it's 20 degrees or it's 100 degrees, I'm not letting the weather stop me from doing that, because how do I know that's not going to happen on race day?
Yeah.
You know?
I think your event may have been, actually, it was a second. Your event is the only event that I did that it did not rain. At least I don't think, did it rain? I don't think it
Yeah.
rained, right?
No, it didn't rain. It didn't
Yeah.
rain. But I mean,
I think that's like one of two ultras I've ever done that
funny.
it didn't rain.
Yeah. Well, and the heat was, I look, first of all, I admit I love heat. I live in North Carolina, and I've always raced well at places like Badwater and whatever. I've raced well in super high heat for whatever reason. But I do think that the mental part of it, you know, this is a mental trick. And this is, I think maybe you do this too, but I am still a competitive person. The competitive part of me, though, when I crossed the finish line, however I did, and whoever beat me, whoever didn't beat me, whatever, if it's a race, like, I'm done with it in that moment. Like, I don't bask in the glory, and I don't get depressed because I didn't break 3 hours in the marathon or whatever. Like, I don't like, I just, whatever it is, whatever. It doesn't mean, though, that I don't go out there and want to do, you know, my absolute best. But, you know, being able to let go of that. But the trick is, and I interrupted myself, the trick is this. I believe in my heart of hearts that the worse the conditions are, the better I'm going to do. And I have no idea if that's true or not, but it is what I believe.
Yeah.
So consequently, I seek events that are hard.
No kidding.
When I look at the weather and I see that it's going to be super hot, or it's going to be super cold, or super wet, or whatever, the first thing I think of, the competitive part of me thinks, those other people are going to be really miserable.
Yeah. They're going to suffer because I strive in that challenge, right? In that suffering, like I can push mentally, physically through and know I'm going to come out the other side. I don't know what it's going to be like, but you're going to get there.
Yeah.
No,
And
I agree.
I think the belief in that, it means so much. And to not be, people want pain-free experiences, and occasionally people want me to coach them. They're like, I want to have the least amount of pain possible. I mean, that'll be their goal when I ask them what their goal is. I'm like, why? Why would you want that? It's like, this is an opportunity to learn more about yourself and to develop tools that'll help you in every aspect of your life, you know, and only fear of pain is causing you fear of perceived pain, because it's actually pain that very often they don't actually even know what that feels like. All they remember is running in middle school with their PE teacher yelling at them, and like that imprinted on them, and so now they think running is bad.
Yeah, of course, right? That psychological piece, 100%. Most people don't like to run because it's torture.
You go to your job every day and you're like, God, I hate this. Guess what? It's going to be a miserable experience. You're going to make yourself go do something else. If you're going to work every day and that's what you're saying, man, it is time to, you know, life is too short. You know, reboot, find something else that drives your passion, you know, and not just your paycheck. We all have to pay the bills, but the biggest bill you have to pay is the one that comes at the end, and you get a chance to ask yourself, did I do this the way I wanted to do it?
Exactly. No, I think that's a great way to finish up this segment, because I know I want to honor your time. It's very important that, you know, I keep my word to you as well.
Thank you.
But I know we can talk a long time, Charlie. I know we definitely can. So I want to let everybody know there may be a part 2 to this.
Yeah, perfect.
And everybody, you will definitely be able to head over to the next section. You'll check out the video portion of this. And I want to thank Charlie, well, personally as a friend now, but also for giving to the community, right? Giving to our, you know, human powered life community. It's been great. And let everybody know now just where is the best place for people to find and learn more about you. Maybe get the book, learn about the upcoming crazy things you have coming on in your life that are really cool, and I'm excited to hear more about. So go for it.
Yeah, thank you. It's super simple. Really just my website. So charlieengle.com. You can find all my social media stuff there. I don't do a ton, but I do Instagram and LinkedIn more than anything else probably. And the book is there. You can still buy the book from Simon and Schuster. You can buy, if you want an autographed copy, you can buy it from me directly, and that link is right on my website. Or if you want to give it as a gift to somebody, and if you really need a book and you're somebody in early addiction recovery, just drop me a note and I'll be happy to send you one. I want to finish too, Josh, by just saying I thank you for trusting me because, you came out, I said to you, hey, I want to invite you out to this 30-hour run, this crazy thing. And we've referenced it, but I have my 30-year sober anniversary recently. And to celebrate every single year, I run for the same number of hours to equal the years I've been sober. So 30 this year, hopefully I'll continue on in the future. I don't know where the end, hopefully the end is never, but you trusted me when I invited you out. You didn't know, you knew you were going to show up and really not know anybody else. Mm-hmm. You were, you were going to raise some money, which you did very successfully for us. And that money was grateful, and I was grateful and appreciative of that. Mm-hmm. And I thank you, because that's the essence of it, is too often people, they don't want to take a chance. You took a chance, you showed up in Maryland, ran around in a circle for, 30 hours. I remember, we'll finish with this, and this is the beauty of it. I remember looking across the field. I don't even know who you're talking to anymore. But what I know is that I looked across the field and I saw you hugging somebody and laughing with somebody who I knew you didn't know the day before. Mm-hmm. And that is the essence of this kind of thing, is, mutual suffering is the greatest binder of friendships. Yeah. If you go do something hard with other people, even if it's a hike in the Grand Canyon, or it's anything that it is, that's how you create lifelong friendships. And those are the ones that I want. So I'm grateful to have you in my life.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you as well, as you know. And everybody, head over to lifestylelocker.com. Check out all the details. We'll have Charlie's links in the show notes, his social media links. He's got some really cool things coming up, and we'll see you all in the video portion. All right, everybody. See you later.
Peace.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Human Powered Life podcast. Make sure to head over to lifestylelocker.com to check out all the details on the show and to watch part 2 of this episode, which is only in video format. We also have this audio portion in video format if you want. Once again, I'm your host, Dr. Josh Hant, for the Human Powered Life podcast, and I'm looking forward to staying connected with you as a Human Powered Life hero. Remember to join the tribe, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.